My lead sources tonight include a pair of White House correspondents from the New York Times, Zolan Cano-Youngs, who is also a CNN political analyst, and Semaphor's Shelby Talcott. We're also joined by Marc Short, a former chief of staff to Vice President Mike Pence. Marc, let's start with you. This is not the first time that the president and vice president have sent conflicting messages during this war. Why is it so hard for the administration to get on the same page when it comes to messaging?
Well, look, it's hard. I think that the media always honestly bores and wants to show division, whether not just in this administration, but any division between a president and vice president. But that's why it's all the more important to make sure you're on the same page so you don't allow that to become a storyline. I'm not so sure in this case it is a big. I think the president has said we need to deter them from nuclear weapons. He's also talked about the importance of energy prices. And so I'm not so sure this is much, but I think it is clear from the beginning of this conflict that Vice President Vance has made it known that he was opposed to it, and he's allowed that word to get out. And that does create, I think, a conflict and tension.
It's interesting, Shelby, that the president now says that Americans shouldn't be worried about paying a little bit extra, as he put it, at the pump in exchange for Iran to not have a nuclear weapon, because earlier this year he said that he wasn't considering Americans' financial situation in his negotiations with Tehran. Let's listen to that soundbite.
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about Americans' financial situation. I don't think about anybody.
He says that, and yet he also says he doesn't want to be Herbert Hoover and drive the world economy into a depression. So what are your sources telling you about what his calculus is here?
I mean, he's very focused on the Iran war, and I think when you hear him make those comments, it comes from a position of feeling like he needs to defend his decision to get involved with Iran. Whereas when you hear the vice president make his comments, there are people inside the administration who have been telling the president for months that they need to focus more on the economy. They need to sort of drive home their message of what they have done to help Americans. And so I think you're seeing that message get out through the vice president, whereas the president is still largely concerned with defending his decision to get the country into what has become a longer conflict than I think he originally anticipated.
Right. You've seen this process play out firsthand when you served in the first Trump administration. Marc, where does this come from?
Well, look, let's keep in mind he's speaking at a rally, and he plays to his audience there, and so he's looking for a line that'll generate applause or whatnot. I think for the reasons that Shelby and Zolan have already said, he's in part trying to deflect from where this stands, the conflict stands now. But it's also, frankly, a terrible idea. I mean, for the reasons you said, you wouldn't want to put Americans there as targets for terrorists. But, you know, something that Chris Wright has been speaking about is honestly an underwritten story, is that there's been so many new ways that energy has found its way out of the Middle East with new pipelines and new routes. And that's a remarkable story. And so why would you want to actually own the Straits as we find more and more ways to get the energy out of the Middle East outside of the Straits of Hormuz?
I also wonder how you feel about the message that the president is putting out there on gas, specifically politically, because I imagine that Democrats right now are slicing that soundbite about, hey, it's okay to pay $4+ for gas for the midterms.
Look, it's a hard message, Boris. I think I'm probably one of that 25% who believes that Iran has been a nemesis for 47 years and does pose a serious threat.
To be fair, the question was, is the war worth the cost
I understand.
so far?
I understand. And
I feel like it's been worth the cost so far.
Well, what I think is that the administration failed to explain on the front end. They should have gone to American people and said, here's what the cost of this will likely be, and here's why we think it's important. Here's the long-term benefits of reducing the risk of energy prices in the Middle East if we're able to diminish Iran. Here's the benefits to long-term peace. But I think they didn't do that. And instead, there's been so many mixed messages of whether this was to deny nuclear weapons, whether this was for regime change, whether this was for energy prices, whether this was to degrade their military capabilities. And I think that makes it more difficult to get your message across.
We have a counterpoint from Maria Cardona, who's just able to join us. She's a CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist.